In this episode, we watch a movie recommended by our other hiking buddy, Jimmy Fierro, a movie from 2019 called After Midnight. It's a love story, but it's a love story wrapped in a horror story. It's like a pig in the blanket. Come and learn about Hank and Abby. Hank doesn't want to get married. Abby really does. Everybody's drunk all the time. There's a monster. What does it mean? Is it a metaphor? We don't know. Jimmy's not here to tell us. Come and help us figure it out. John.
Yes.
Why are we up so late?
Yeah, it's 12:10?
Yeah. I usually am sound asleep at this point, but I was woken by some scratching and growling sounds coming from your direction.
I missed dinner, so yeah.
I thought maybe you were a giant metaphor and I didn't understand it.
That may be the case. Yeah, I was hungry for this episode.
Yeah. Well, today's episode is about After Midnight from 2021 or possibly 2019.
Who knows?
I saw both dates. And this originally was titled, it was called Something Else originally, literally. That was the title, Something Else.
Something else.
But now it's called After Midnight.
Also ambiguous and means nothing.
It stars one of the two directors, which immediately marks it, in my view, as a project of love and a homemade and possibly initial directorial movie-making attempt.
It's a project, typically you might find the director using their own experiences in life as a plot element or plot sequence written likely about themselves in some form.
Takes place in Florida, I believe, in sort of a swampy climate.
Mm-hmm.
And
is that important?
I think the swamp nature of the setting is important for the creature.
Got it.
It's something of a love story. The reviews that I read used the term genre crossing. Sold as a horror movie, but it's much more of a relationship story.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And one review accused the movie of not being a horror movie at all. It's just a relationship movie, and they just slapped in the creature in order to be able to call it a horror movie because, according to the reviewer's argument, horror movies will get more publicity than a romantic, which seems that doesn't seem valid to me, but that was the point this reviewer had made.
He felt it was a bait and switch. Would you agree with this reviewer's critique?
I would. It is predominantly about the love affair between Hank and Abby and their decade-long engagement, I guess, sprinkled within a lot of flashbacks and dialogue about relationship problems is the nightly appearance after midnight of a swamp creature.
Mm-hmm.
And Hank's struggles to thwart it from getting into the house, I guess.
He has found himself defending his front door from a swamp creature, which I didn't really think of it as a swamp creature, but likely came from the swamp based on the geography of the picture.
It has an aquatic feel to it, the monster, like it lives in or close to the water.
I felt it had a porcupine type feel. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure the ecosystem in which a porcupine thrives, but it probably is near a water source.
And it ate a cat, so maybe Alf?
Yeah, that's it. Well, so it could be from space. Do you know what planet Alf is from?
I don't remember, no. I know what Alf stands for. Yeah,
you do? Okay, what's that?
It stands for alien life form.
The species is Melmacian.
Oh, Melmac. I forgot about Melmac.
From Melmac.
Yeah. I remember now.
Yeah, so.
Well, Alf didn't have spiky quills, nor was he as large as the creature in this movie.
But he was more entertaining.
He cracked more jokes, for sure, than this monster did.
And that's basically the plot element, summary is relationship on the rocks. Hank's girlfriend left, girlfriend being Abby. Now there's a sense of disillusionment of relationship and then working through that as a monster is visiting Hank. That's essentially the plot line.
Do you see this monster as metaphorical?
Yes, I think that this monster is metaphorical, and I have a build-out of what that metaphor is.
Are you going to reveal it right now?
First, I already know you didn't like the movie. I'm just going to say that straight up.
Okay.
You're a hard band to please, and this did not meet your expectation. And there are points at which you were quite bored, fatigued, frustrated, annoyed. But I'll spare you of reliving that experience and really just give the algorithm here. So, and then you can give me the big reveal as to whether you like the movie or not.
Okay. You give me the algorithm, I'll give you the big reveal.
These are yes/no questions. Did you attach to the couple? The couple, Hank, Abby.
Am I meant to answer these?
Yeah. So, did you feel a sense of attachment, emotional attachment to Hank and Abby as a couple?
I did not like Abby. I didn't like her smile. She didn't seem authentic to me. In the flashback, she didn't seem entirely happy. She was like maybe 85% happy. So that was effective by the actress. But I didn't care for the actress herself. I did like Hank quite a lot. I thought he was endearing. And
You're moving too fast here, buddy. The next question, as you're already into, which I appreciate, is did you have sympathy for the male lead?
I wouldn't go so far as to call it sympathy, but I liked the actor. And I liked the way the character was depicted. I did not sympathize with his. I don't have anything to sympathize with him. What did he undergo that might merit sympathy?
Well, the potential ending of his relationship and his girlfriend disappearing.
Well, I mean, I didn't feel evoked. My emotions weren't evoked by his leaving phone messages for her or that's the only, and his drinking. I didn't know if that was symptomatic of her having left, or if it seems like he drinks no matter what's going on. So besides the alcohol use and leaving messages on her machine, I didn't see any other real manifestations of like heartbreak. Most of the movie is either a flashback to their relationship or him at the bar or him fending off the monster at night. There's no real exploration of his emotional loss.
I appreciate the depth in which you answer these questions, and it helps me understand the rationale that you're bringing here. And the last one being, did you find the dialogue cringy? Yes, no.
Cringy?
Cringy. Bringing a sense of cringe.
I didn't find it cringy, no. I didn't find it, it wasn't good.
Interesting. Okay, so let me just give you the results.
Okay.
You like this movie.
I thought you said I didn't like it.
My prediction was that you didn't like it. I have now provided these 3 questions, and based on your responses, this tool would suggest you liked the movie.
Is this like 2 out of 3 he likes it, 1 out of 3 he didn't like it?
Basically, yeah. It's I don't want to get into the methodology, the hours of research and development on this tool.
Focus testing.
I'm just interpreting the results, and based on the data, it would suggest that you like the movie.
This movie did not fall into the category of total shit. However, it's good in that sense. However, I did not enjoy this movie.
Damn. See, it's close because it had me going there for a minute because you were shying away from total shit. But then at the end, you were like, I didn't like it.
It's not poorly written. It's not poorly shot. It's not poorly conceived. It's a work of love. So that all check marks in its favor, but the relationship did not endear me. I did not like Abby, and it was not scary, and I don't understand the monster. There was no heart to it. There was no emotion.
Brian is very elusive in his answering because he's a complicated guy. His answers aren't just yes, no. They have depth, and I appreciate that.
I'm like a creature in the night that you can't really see or shoot or get a flashlight on.
You can't put your finger on these answers in a yes or no category.
You didn't like this movie, John. I'm going to guess you didn't like it.
I did not like this movie. Yeah.
What? Why not?
I can go through this algorithm here.
Okay.
Did you attach to the couple, John? No, I didn't. I found both Hank and Abby off-putting.
Hank, even Hank?
Even Hank, yeah. Did you have sympathy for the male lead? No, I didn't. I had no sympathy for the male lead. I felt it kind of reminded me of that werewolf movie we watched, Wolf of Snow Hollow. Yeah.
What on earth does Hank and the guy from that movie have in common in your eye?
I didn't consider that deeply enough to provide an answer, but there's some emotional element that was elicited out of me that made me dislike the male lead. And then did I find the dialogue cringy? I most certainly did.
Mm.
Yeah. The results are in.
So you're 0 out of 3.
Yeah, I did not like this movie. But I do have a definition of the metaphor of the monster.
Yeah, what do you hit me?
So
because I don't have any theories at all.
You have no theory, not even a guess, a wild guess.
Well, at first I thought it was some haunting regret because he didn't marry Abby, or he didn't. There were no scenes in the flashback of her seeming frustrated that he hadn't proposed. The first news we get about her dissatisfaction is once she's back and they're sitting out with the doors open waiting for the monster and they have their big talk. Some reviews mention this too. I felt like that should have all come earlier in the movie to the audience, because all the flashbacks were just, riding in the tire swing or laying in the hammock or making out in the laundry room and stuff. So there was no suggestion that they had been together that long. You could tell from the flashbacks that she was kind of dissatisfied. There was a look in the character's eyes sometimes, like I said, only like 85% happy and satisfied. But yeah, certainly no indication that they had been dating for a decade and that she wanted to live in a city as opposed to the middle of nowhere swamp and all that. So metaphorically interpreting the monster as regret over his lack of proposing or just general relationship behavior springs to mind. But then the monster comes back when Abby is back. So that's metaphor doesn't seem to want to cross over that line.
Okay, yeah. So there are some plot elements that might be required just because it's a movie and it has to move the narration along. I did find that there was a scene where they were at a party and Hank was talking about having a kid, and I don't know if he said something about if they came out at 5 years old or something. He made some comment about the distaste of having kids, and then she had a pondering. It pulled her out of the social scene, and she reflected about that and a sense of, oh, I want a kid. Why doesn't he want a kid? There was a hint to that, but it wasn't significant. And you're right. The scene where Abby comes back and they're dialoguing about their relationship, that's when Abby talks about the details that are completely vacant from the movie. And yeah, there was an annoying piece where Abby was referring to Hank as some hunter, some guy that is constantly on the hunt, which I assumed meaning other women.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they've been in a relationship for 10 years. Hunting what? Like hunting a fantasy? Be one thing if he was someone who she knew had many short-term relationships, or she had just met him and there were sequences of girls that he had dated and she knew about that. But no, they've been dating for 10 years. Like, who, I'm saying it was kind of obnoxious to assume that he would be a hunter. He's the most complacent hunter I would have ever met.
Yeah, he seems fully devoted to her and head over heels. And the town doesn't seem to me to be full of young, beautiful women that might cause her to suspect him. So yeah, I see what you're saying. And all of her concerns were, one of the reviews I read mentioned this, just so kind of banal and uninteresting. She wants to not live in the country and she's worried about him having wandering eyes and wants to have a kid before it's too late and all this sort of thing. And all those are valid everyday concerns in a relationship, but they weren't terribly engaging.
So my viewpoint on this monster is that this monster is Hank's difficulty of choice, this existential choice that he's being placed into, where he has to make the decision to propose to his girlfriend, and he's wrestling with whether he should or he shouldn't. This would give more volume to the 10-year relationship, where despite being in a 10-year relationship, I haven't proposed and I also haven't chased other women. I'm frozen in my ability to make decision. And this decision has essentially corrupted my relationship. I care about Abby, and now she's left. The only thing that remains is myself and it's a sense of ambivalence, where he is ambivalent about whether he should continue this relationship or end it. And he's been suffering, in a sense, for 10 years under this. And when Abby leaves, this monster comes and he has to wrestle it. And at the end, he does defeat the monster, and then he proposes. So this is
Well, he proposes and then... Well, actually, no, you're right. He sings his little song and then he proposes after he kills the monster.
if this is the idea, not only is he killing the ambivalence of decision, but he's also killing the potential futures that he has been wrestling over. I would say that the reviews as related to Abby is being kind of a unflattering girlfriend in that during karaoke, she has no enthusiasm for a karaoke. I would say that there's some suggestion that she's a selfish lover. She has a passion for wine, yet is not able to create it in any meaningful way. So the things that she even likes, she's not good at. This is a smaller one, but discontent with her boyfriend and kind of gives him maybe a hard time for not choosing partnership or marriage. She has a passion to leave a small town, yet continues to stay there, not chasing her own ambitions. So these are character flaws, things about Abby that I think are intentionally stitched into the movie, where it's like, by choosing to stay with Abby, I have to accept all these negative things, all these poor qualities about her. And what a terrible thing to have to accept, this humanity about her, these imperfect qualities. So I have to accept that. And then Hank has to eliminate the potential of his future life of proposing to a different girl, maybe chasing his own passions, maybe even staying in the country. Although there's a wrestling about that where he maybe is staying in the country because of his own level of intimidation of a city, but at least he is staying in the country because it is his choice, or at least seems to be his choice. Abby is staying in the country despite her verbal preference not to. So anyway, so he is faced with this existential choice, and none of the options are perfect. He's in this dialectical process of reviewing, hey, is Abby the person I want to spend my life with? There's all these negative qualities about her. I don't want to attach myself to something that is imperfect or without a high level of confidence. And in order for me to choose this Abby path, I have to sacrifice my own independent possibility of meeting somebody else, and maybe even my own passions for that. Every night at midnight, I'm being haunted by this decision. And until I conclude one way or another, I can't kill this monster. And it's torturing me.
Well, if that's all the case, then the movie does not support that metaphor at all, in my opinion, when there's no indication that Hank is on the prowl looking for other women. There is that one scene where he's drinking late at the bar with Jane, the bartender, and he has a drunken, perhaps lustful look in his eyes, but otherwise he's 100% of kind of a big fluffy teddy bear character. In all of the flashbacks, he seems in utter adoration of Abby. When she does come back and they're sitting with the door open waiting for the monster to come, he expresses jealousy that she has gone in Miami and met with her former boyfriend. He's the one that needs reassurance in that regard. He says that he lost his business partner when you left, and he lost his best friend when Abby left. There's nothing but connection and adoration. There's no exploration of other women that he might get in relationships with. He seems to want nothing else than to live in this house in the middle of nowhere with Abby. There's no suggestion that he's sacrificing anything by getting married other than possibly moving somewhere else. So if this monster is meant to be a giant existential, you said, choice, the bad consequences of choosing to marry Abby aren't really fleshed out at all, I think.
Yeah, well, I think that the qualities that Abby displays through the movie, all the negative ones I listed, are there.
But where does he ever seem to notice those or call her out on them?
They're evident. I don't think that I'm making them up or that an audience member wouldn't also identify them.
Yeah, I remember the wine scene where she called it Sauvignon Brun or something because it turned out brown and oxidized, but he wasn't anything but supportive in that scene. I think he told his friends to shush and So he was even when her flaws are presented, it's not like he's rolling his eyes and showing contempt for her.
That's true. I would agree with that. Ultimately, the dialogue scene where they're sitting in front of the front door anticipating this monster to come, she's speaking about him as the quality that is most concerning or is interrupting their relationship is his interest in hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the only identified quality that it seems to be that she's seeing in him that threatens the relationship. And so my guess is that hunting means finding another woman and not being content with the woman that's in front of her.
Well, what woman in a relationship with a man doesn't have that fear? It's just there's nothing particular to these two about that. And men too worry about women being unfaithful. It's there's nothing that Hank does as Hank to suggest at all that he's 1 inch more likely to cheat on Abby than any other heterosexual male would.
Well, she seems to think that, and that seems to be the only reason why they haven't gotten together yet. What would you kind of suggest is the reason why they haven't gotten married?
I don't know. Yeah, that's I'm at a loss to explain that. Because you never learn. I mean, you can kind of tell that. I don't know. He in all the flashbacks, like I said, he just seems, and maybe they're slightly rose-colored glasses. You know, his imagined versions of the past, but he seems utterly taken with her. And yeah, I can't imagine why he wouldn't have proposed to her. The movie doesn't suggest any other possible causes. He has a house. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know.
Well, as you describe that, there's a possibility that I'm injecting all sorts of content to the movie that it doesn't present itself. So to kind of review the movie in which you saw, it's Hank is a loyal and interested boyfriend who is anticipating, as was shown in the movie, to marry Abby, having purchased the ring already and taped it to the bottom of a wine glass.
Oh yeah, that's right. He would have done that at the vineyard, presumably.
And so there's literally nothing wrong with the relationship at all. He's ready to propose at any moment. She then, for some undescribed reason, leaves, although later she says that she went to a reunion in Miami or left for a month or something like that. He is then at a loss, very sad that she's gone. He's incredibly interested in marrying this woman and has no doubt in his mind. And then when she comes back, he's like, oh, good, she's back. I can't wait to propose. And then proposes. And her concern about him being a hunter is completely constructed in her mind, but without evidence. I'm not saying like that's incorrect. I'm only describing another way of looking at the movie, which actually may be the correct way in looking at it. The only problem with that is that then the monster has no reason to be in the movie. In fact, maybe the monster is the woman's, Abby's, concern about, or maybe a feeling of insecurity around Hank or any male that she might be having to consider marrying.
Another issue with reading the monster as metaphorical is that there are claw marks on the door. There is a shotgun blast in the there's a hole in the door, and there's a dead cat. So there's physical consequences for, I guess metaphorical doesn't have to be the same as imaginary, but there's something that made those marks on the door and killed the cat. And there's something clearly that tackles him at the end of the movie in which he kills. Mm-hmm. So there has to be a reality-based explanation of what this thing is. Nobody believes him. The sheriff thinks it's a black bear, and his bar friend Wade has all kinds of potential aliens or other explanations. But I have another idea, John, that the metaphor is not the monster. Mm-hmm. The metaphor is the wine. Mm-hmm. Wine is the metaphor. There's a lot of wine in this movie. Mm-hmm. One of the things that Abby highlights about her trip to Miami was that she got to try wines she couldn't even pronounce. Mm-hmm. And she makes her own wine, as we've said. It doesn't turn out so great. And the wine that Hank buys for Abby at the vineyard is really terrible. She doesn't like it. And there's a joke in one of the flashbacks where he says that he bought a whole crate of it, and there's like 11 more bottles they have to get through. And when he does his little proposal after killing the monster, he says, as he holds up the wine bottle, he says, "Do you want to drink 12 more crates of this shit," or something like that. So there's this, the wine is somehow perhaps their own efforts to create a meaningful connection with each other, hers and his. And they're both drinking throughout the whole movie, more or less. So wine as something that each of them acquires and something that they share together, but something which is dissatisfying and yet must be swallowed.
Yeah, and I know that metaphors and interpretations like this, and I don't want to speak for you, but tend to feel like a waste of time because there's so many different ways of interpreting them. And I can share that viewpoint. We have found ourselves having seen a movie where the director inserted this monster, and it could be just there's a love story here, and it could have existed entirely without the monster. But hey, let's just add a thread of a monster here just for the hell of it. But it has no attachment to either a symbolic representation of anything. It's just a monster that comes in. No one believes him for whatever reason. And at the end, he kills the monster. And it's secondary to everything with zero attachment. And that could be it. But the problem is that I don't know how satisfying that would be for the viewer. And why would the director bother doing it? It's not so much that I necessarily enjoy coming up with these potential theories of the monster, but it feels impossible not to in order to leave the movie with some level of satisfaction or even coherence as to what did I see? Like I have to assemble this into a narrative in which it's comprehensible. So
yeah, I think that our experience of the movie would be fuller if we had a metaphorical interpretation of this monster, but I'm becoming more and more open as we talk to the notion I mentioned in that review that maybe the monster is just kind of a gag. There are elements of humor in this movie. The bar friend Wade is witty at times, and I felt like if this is true, I'm kind of thinking of that that zombie movie Shaun of the Dead, where it's like its premise is that it's a zombie movie, but it's really like a comedy and doesn't do what zombie movies do. I think, what if this is billed as a horror movie, but it's really a quite uninteresting, quite banal exploration of mid-30s relationship atrophy, but with an endearing male character, I thought. And they just throw in this monster, not throw in the monster, but the monster is there, not as a way to get it into the horror movie category, but just as a way to, I don't know, because it's not billed at all as a relationship movie. It's like, I think the only things in the preview are, him barricading the room, and you think his girlfriend has been like taken by the monster because of all the flashbacks, and so it's a complete non sequitur. The movie does not follow from the trailer whatsoever. So there is an element of double cross, I feel like, but so genre crossing, genre bending. Maybe it's doing that as some kind of statement about, I don't know, but that's something that I'm willing to settle on.
Yeah, and that could be it. I would guess, though, the feeling of dissatisfaction as that bait and switch might go, although I guess this wouldn't be any good reason to have a positive review one way or another, but the movie did get relatively good reviews. I don't think it's widely viewed. I don't think it's like, maybe the polling isn't wide enough to give it a viewership that would critique it. It's like if you look at the reviews for, I don't know, Saved by the Bell, everyone says it's fantastic. And that's because
I was writing those reviews, actually.
And that's because the only people that are watching Saved by the Bell are those that want to see Saved by the Bell. And so any TV show or whatever series you look at, it's 5 stars.
At the same time, I think this movie does deliver on some, I always talk about body sensations being sort of what I need in a horror movie, and it does that. There's at least 3 good jump scares, and the one at the end is fantastic. and when the creature's claw appears through the hole at night, and then Hank does kind of a flank maneuver out the back door and tries to sneak up on it. Like, you do have the body sensations, the body chills at that point. So it delivers in its like 1/5 horror movie moments. Just putting that out there too. It's not like tries to bait and switch you and doesn't do a good job with the horror movie part.
Yeah, so it delivers on that aspect. It just isn't baked into the entire movie, forwards and backwards.
If there were no monster, I wouldn't be interested in this plot at all. But it's like I'm kind of imagining like blood sugar spikes, where you eat something and your blood sugar spikes, and then you can be without food for a while, and then you get hungry and you need something else to spike your blood sugar. If the little jump scares or zombie or monster appearances are interpreted that way, then they might have carried my waning interest through the troughs of intervening relationship dialogue, and therefore I came out of the movie feeling sort of not hungry. It didn't turn off my will to pay it attention, if that makes any sense.
I have one last theory on this monster.
Okay.
It could just be jealousy.
Okay.
So
still metaphorical.
Still metaphorical, yeah. So Abby goes to this reunion, and when Abby gets back, Hank's like, "Where'd you go?" And then Abby's like, "I went to the reunion, like I told you, and I asked you to come, and you didn't come." And so Hank kind of comes off as if he had no idea where she was, and so maybe he kind of put this out of his mind as a concern because her ex-boyfriend was going to be there, so he didn't come because of jealousy. And then at night, he was thinking about her as he was falling asleep each night, feeling jealousy about her and where she might be. Later in one of the conversations, I can't remember which, he was talking about concerns about how people might talk about them behind their backs while she's gone. And that is maybe a jealous element, or at least a suspicious element in which how he's concerned how others might think. It's a controlling element to a degree, I guess, but maybe that's it. Maybe he's just, when she's gone, he has this sense of jealousy. And then when she comes back, he's waiting for this jealousy monster to show up, and it doesn't show up. Let's kind of chalk these up into 3 categories just to kind of see where we're at. Option A, my first one, existential choice, the dread of existential choice. The second one, it's just a monster in a movie because we basically hung a romantic movie on a skeleton of a monster movie.
Right.
Option 3, jealousy when girlfriend's out of town.
Yeah, I feel like 1 and 3 could be combined, right? I mean, I think a lot of marriages, part of the motivation to enter into them is the jealousy that is felt, Marriage is a contract, a legally binding contract that basically says, I swear up and down to never sleep with somebody else again. So it's a way of legalizing that sense of jealousy in some form.
Right. So it's a trust document.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't mind combining 1 and 2.
Okay.
I mean, sorry, 1 and 3.
1 and 3.
Or it's just a movie with a monster in it, and it's about a couple.
Well, I mean, there's clearly elements of 1 because the monster only starts showing up after she leaves, and he kills the monster right as he's proposing to her. So I see all that, but all the stuff about eating the cat and the dialogues with the sheriff about whether it was a bear or not, and putting out the bear trap and all that is just, I feel like horror movie syrup on top of the ice cream.
Yeah. So, well,
They're constantly flipping through. Like that scene from Lord of the Rings where Gandalf is researching the Ring of Power and he's just surrounded by books.
Why would he have to research the Ring of Power? I feel like it's just something that you utilize and use. Why would he need to do the paperwork on it?
Well, he had to connect the dots from like how it got to Hobbiton, how it got to the Shire. Because he knew that there was one. He just didn't. He needed to track down like where it had been last. And I haven't seen the movie in a while. Maybe we'll watch Lord of the Rings and talk about that.
Oh God! All right, sir. Well, this has been a cloudy discussion, and
it's been wet and swampy, but sometimes that's how she goes.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I agree. Well, it is. Let's see. 12:20 now. It's been 10 minutes.
Yeah. I guess we'll just sit here and see what happens.
Right. Yeah. Do you have that bear trap or?
No.